Okay. Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Rachel. I'm so excited to be chatting with you. I
Yeah.
have some dogs and I told them not to bark. I'm not sure if they'll listen. So
Okay. I've got a squeaky chair, so we'll see how that goes.
perfect.
All right. That's raw conversations all about real life. And before we really get going, I do want to say for anyone listening that Elizabeth and I have never really spoken before. We've just met. I feel like there's a lot of common ground. We were going to have this conversation privately, and I suggested that we do it as a raw conversation. And I also want to say that we may talk about some things that are pretty. I suspect we're going to talk about cancer and death and some heavy subjects. So um, just to put that out there for people to know what to expect.
For
So
sure, for sure.
so let's get to know each other. I want to say thank you for reaching out to me through Sean's group and recognizing our some shared commonalities. Um, and I'm looking forward to getting to know what your story is. Mm.
Yeah, same. I heard you do your introduction on that first Friday call, and I was totally intrigued. Like, oh my gosh, we have very similar overlaps, I think. And then I joined a group and I was chatting with them about my book coming out. And they were like, you need to talk to Rachel Martin. And I was like, okay, I will. So stepping outside of my comfort zone to reach out to you, but I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I get to talk with you.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Well, you seem very natural at this stepping outside of your comfort zone. Congratulations for doing it, and I'm curious what. So you've listened to a little, you know my story, and you've listened to some of the podcasts. What is your story? What I know you lost your husband to cancer, and I'm very sorry to hear that. I both had cancer and lost my father, so it's been like a double whammy the last couple of years. What
Yeah.
How did it show up in your life?
So I can tell you that it was actually my second husband that I lost to cancer. My first husband I lost to suicide back in 2010. So I have 5 kids and remarried in 2014. And then about 18 months after we got married, he had a cough that wouldn't go away. And he went and had um, antibiotics for bronchitis. And then they were like, wait, we think there's more to it. And probably, as you know, all of a sudden it's building, building, growing until you get like, stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis.
Hmm.
So he lived for 20 months. So we had a good 20 months together, knowing that he probably wasn't going to make it. And
Wow.
so I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. To have that time after knowing is really, it's precious. It's hard. I mean, it's hard either way. um,
Right.
but to be able to consciously have that is important. I'm curious. You said he went in for a cough, and then it built and built and built, and suddenly stage 4. How long was it from that time when he went in for the cough to them diagnosing?
So he went in for a cough, and then they gave him antibiotics. And about a week later, he was still not feeling better. And so he went back and they did an EKG, and they were like, something's not right. Doesn't look good. You need to go to the emergency room right away. And then there they did a CT and they thought it was blood clots in his lungs. Um, and then they did this procedure. He had a pericardial effusion. I don't know if I'm getting too technical, but basically like fluid around his heart.
Mhm.
And they were like, we need to put a window in to drain the fluid. And I need to grab a drink.
Yeah, go for it. No, no worries. Take your time.
Okay, hold on one second. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So they went to do the pericardial window to take the fluid out, and he went into respiratory failure during the procedure. So he was in a coma for a couple of weeks, and it was while he was in the coma that they had biopsied the fluid, which was blood, actually. Kind of an odd story. It's like an odd chain of events, but while he was in the coma is when they said, we think this is cancer. And yeah.
Wow, that's so sudden and that unexpected. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was yeah, in those moments life was difficult for sure.
How you said you have 5 kids?
Yeah.
How was that with your kids? Were they, do you mind if I ask details? Like, are they his children or
No,
biologically?
so biologically, I had the first 3 with my first husband, and then we adopted 2, and
Okay.
then lost him. So when we lost him, I had a 13, 10, 9, 2, and 3-year-old.
Wow.
And then we met Dave, and he kind of, accepted all of us. So no kids of his own, but he just loved mine like they were his.
Right.
So one of the things that at Dave's service, at my second husband's service, one of the things, my oldest son at that point had just turned 21 the day before his service, and so he just kind of lost it and was like, I don't understand. Most kids don't lose dads. Now we've lost 2 dads. Why is this happening to us? And I kind of felt that, like, yeah, this doesn't happen a lot, but here we are.
Yeah. How has that been? I can't imagine, like, for myself as a single woman, handling the grief that I went through for what I went through, and then losing my dad, to be doing that with your 5 kids too. That's how is that for you as a family?
Um,
I'm not
sometimes
probably
it's,
gonna say,
I
sorry, I'm
mean,
probably asking very general questions. I maybe
yeah,
not the best.
it's it's like it's like an onion, with layers. So my daughter, who's 14 now, is really currently struggling a lot with trauma and loss, and it's all just kind of come to a head at this point. So she's the one I think that's getting most of my attention right now.
Mm.
My 3 older kids are all in college, and they're all doing really well, making really good life choices, and that's always exciting to see them like bloom and become. And then I've got my 13 and 14-year-olds now, and just kind of focusing in on them, making sure they're okay, making sure they understand feelings and how to process them and release things that we can't control, and just that kind of stuff. I just really focus a lot on, let's be as authentic as we can. Let's live our lives as truly as possible. And I think that's one of the things that drew me to you, is that you have that vibe too of, this is real, and we don't just focus on the happy. We feel all the feelings from, the ones that are lower to the ones that are higher.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say thank you. I think that's so incredible that you're able to provide that awareness for your children. For me, the that has been something I've had to discover through my own path, and I think that um, it's been one of the things that cancer has given me, almost
Yeah.
like a validation of like being able to embrace it all. And I almost said it's one of the gifts of cancer, which is the title of a book that you've got coming out really soon, right? 10 days,
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. I just feel like through that experience, I've always been a journaler. So I have, random journals from the time I was 15, and it feels like when life gets really good, like all the practices of journaling and meditating and all those things kind of like fall to the wayside.
Yeah.
But when you like get down into the struggle, you're like, oh yeah, I need to journal. So I journaled through the whole process, and I joined this Toastmasters group like a year and a half
Yes.
ago.
You're a Toastmaster too. Me too.
I am. You are. I love it.
Yeah.
So I got up to give my icebreaker speech, and I was like, what thing has influenced my life the most recently? And I shared this story of, um, of Dave passing from cancer. And at the end, someone came up to me and said, you need to write a book. And I was like, oh, maybe I will. And it just kind of turned into like my 2020 passion project of I'm going to do something while I'm home, while I'm, in the downtime.
Yeah. Wow, incredible. So you just wrote it in the last year,
Yeah.
then, and this time you use the 2020 downtime to incubate something. That's cool.
Yeah.
What would you mind? Are you a writer, or what do you like by profession, or is it, you said journaling is just something that you've done?
Yeah, I'm a novice writer. So I was a high school teacher for a long time. I taught history and economics and government. And um, a year and a half ago, I decided to leave teaching because I wanted to focus in more on my family. And I have a little essential oil business, and so I really wanted to focus my energy there. And I love having just the time to do what I want to do. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't know.
That's cool. You've created it.
Yeah.
I have so many questions about your essential oil business, about the crystal bowls I see in the background, about
Yeah.
Reiki, about the book. So I don't, is there anything that you want to really talk more about or ask me or kind of see?
Well, I would love you're a Reiki master also, correct?
I'm not a Reiki master, actually. Reiki training is not something that I've done. It's something I've been considering.
Okay.
I am a 200-hour yoga teacher. I've been looking at Kundalini training, and I've studied with Irene Lyon through her online course for nervous system healing. And I
Oh,
have my
cool.
own way of like teaching on the slack line for self-discovery and nervous system healing that I'm it's all my creation, and I'm figuring out how I put that out in the world. I feel like with like Reiki and yoga, it's very clear and
Yeah.
established. So yeah, that's my background. And I'd be curious to hear about your Reiki training so that I can see if that's something that I do want to pursue and what that
Sure.
means for you.
So for me, when I was studying we took a pretty alternative approach to my husband's cancer treatments. when they diagnosed him, they said, you know, if he does chemo every 2 weeks for the rest of his life, and he's really lucky, he might live for 6 months. So the prognosis was not anything like, oh, we'll do that. It wasn't like, healing or. Um, so he did choose to do 4 rounds of chemo, and then he was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore. So I jumped pretty heavily into the alternative medicine world, and we traveled a lot, just looking for different treatments. So the first place we went was down to Ecuador, and that's actually when I started my essential oil business. We went to a farm there where they specialized in essential oils. It was really cool. So one of the things that I came across was Reiki while I was just kind of researching, and I found this website that told you all the hand positions, and I was like, okay, you lay down and I'm gonna try this thing on you. And he's like, oh, okay. And I'm moving my hands, doing all the things that it said to do. And he's like, babe, can we just stop now? This is doing nothing. Yeah, that's fine. So after he passed away, I found that an attunement is necessary in Reiki. So it's just the passing of the energy kind of thing. So I was doing the right things. I was following the directions and the instructions, which is what I am really good at. But I was missing the whole spirit of it. And so I found a Reiki master locally, and I called her up randomly. I found her on Meetup, and I called her up and I just said, hey, I'm interested in your Reiki class. And she's like, awesome, come over. And so I went over, and she's like, well, have you ever had a Reiki session? And I said, no. And she said, well, let me give you a Reiki session. And it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. She didn't put her hands on me. Her hands were always off of me, but it was so cool. I went into, I think now, with studying with Sean Croxton, it was just different brain waves that I went into, almost a meditative state, but having another person there facilitating it was amazing. And so I was like, okay, sign me up. I want to learn. And so we went through, there's level 1, level 2, and then your level 3 is master teacher level. And so once you're a master teacher, now you have the ability to attune other people. So I've been in that world for a little bit. It was after Dave died that I really dove into it.
Mm. Wow. Can you tell me more about the treatment paths that you chose? You said you went to Ecuador and there was an essential oil farm. So was that part of the treatment, or what types of things did you pursue? And were you interested in alternative treatments prior to the cancer diagnosis?
Well, I had always used essential oils. They were just kind of part of my everyday life. My youngest daughter, when I adopted her, she was covered head to toe in eczema. And I took her to the doctor, and they were like, oh, she needs a steroid treatment. And I was kind of like, she's 4 months old. Is steroids a good idea? I don't even know why, but something in my brain was like, that might not be the best idea. And that's the first time I ever questioned anything. She's my 5th kid. Everything else, I was like, yeah, sure, go for it. But for whatever reason, that didn't resonate with me. And I had this friend who was kind of into natural stuff. And I called her and I go, what do you think about this? And she said, come over. And so I went over, and she goes, we're going to mix up our own cream for her. And so that's what we did. And we cleared up her eczema. And it was really cool. So from there, I just kind of started using oils for everything. When we lost my first husband, I realized the emotional benefits of oils and just raising your frequency just by breathing something in. So I'd always kind of used them. I always loved them. They were a huge part of my parenting and my life. And So when he decided not to do chemo anymore, I went to my friend who had done the concoction for my daughter. I was like, I don't know what to do. And she's like, you need to go to Ecuador. So when we went down there, it was really cool, the things that they were doing. They focused in a lot on massage, um, and colonics, and just really focused on his liver. And I was like, why are we so focused on his liver? The cancer's in his lungs. And they were like, well, the liver is going to cleanse his body. But they did IV treatments with essential oils, and yeah, we went to like a raw vegan diet. Just kind of going back to what's natural in the world. I focused on that a lot. We came back from there. He ended up having the same pericardial effusion again. So about 6 months after the first one, he had a second one. So we basically like rushed back as fast as we could from there, because I was like, I don't trust the hospitals here. So we rushed back, and they were like, yep, same thing again. And so he went in for the surgery, and the second time, we were kind of like, I'm like, what if you don't wake up from this one? But his body had changed so much, and his focus had changed so much, that it was good. It was a good surgery. It happened really quickly, and so we did that. He did do a target therapy pill, because his cancer was genetic. Was yours genetic?
They don't believe so, but there's so little known about appendix cancer. I need to do a DNA test, a saliva test that I've been dragging my feet on sending in for some reason. I think because I'm avoiding dealing with the fact that I'm a cancer survivor a little bit, and there's some mental stuff there, but probably not. So how did they know that his was genetic? And so did he have family members who also had it?
So they did the original biopsy, and they said it was not. So they ended up doing 4 different biopsies, because they kept saying, he was in his late 30s. It came on so quickly, and they were like, he definitely didn't live the healthiest lifestyle before the cancer, but nothing that was out of the ordinary for most Americans. So they kept biopsying it until they found it's called the ALK mutation. Once they found that, he was able to take a target therapy. But from that point forward, that was the only traditional medicine that he had. There's like over in Tempe, there's Tempe, Arizona. I'm in Arizona.
Where you're in Arizona?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm in Phoenix.
Okay.
So in Tempe, which is like 30 minutes away, there's a clinic called Nature Works Best, and they were doing IV treatments with them, and they were doing like the hyperbaric chamber. I'm trying to think of the other natural things that we did.
Did you do any like high dose vitamin C and that type of thing? You said IV treatments. I know that was like essential oils in Ecuador, and then what I assume it probably wasn't essential oils in Tempe, or was it? I've never heard of that in the US.
No, I don't think you can do that in the US. It was like the high dose vitamin C. They called it. It was like his cancer fighting nutrients, and the doctors would specifically go in and like she would meet with us, and then she would go in into like this little room, and she would mix up whatever the way that she saw fit for him that day. But I know that there was vitamin C, but I'm not sure what else was in there. They used to say it was just proprietary. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's cool to know about these things that they're out there. And I'm curious, how did you said after the essential oil treatment when he came back and had the heart procedure again that his body had changed. How was he feeling? How did it have any adverse effects, the natural treatments, or what changes did you notice?
So what I feel like is that I feel like none of it was completely like all, I mean, obviously he passed away. So nothing was like completely curative that, oh, we did this and now it's gone. I do know people who have gone to Ecuador that were actually there with us with different types of cancer who are still cancer free right now. And I also know people that went to the Nature Works Best clinic um, who are still around. But I also know a lot of people from both who are no longer are as well. So I don't think that there's anything that's like an all or nothing, but I think like anything, small changes end up making a big difference. And so for him, diet was pretty crucial. Regular massages, regular colonics, um, the essential oils, all those things I think were key for him.
Mhm. Well, you said originally they'd said 6 months with a lot of chemo, right? And you said
Right.
that you had 20 months with him
Yeah.
after the diagnosis. I think that's, I mean, it sounds like those small changes did make a fair amount of difference,
Yeah.
right? I mean, hopefully.
That's, yeah, that's how I feel. And for me, the thing was it wasn't 20 months of sick. It was 20 months of traveling and golfing and just having fun and playing. You know, there was definitely ups and downs, but there was a lot of good and a lot of him feeling really good, and that was important.
Yeah. How did that change? How did that diagnosis? You said you traveled a lot, you had a lot of fun together. How did it shift the way that you lived life together after that? Was there more of a oomph, more of like we're doing this?
Yeah, I think that's the gist of my book, basically.
I
We had before diagnosis, we had a little remodel store. Um, so we were open from 10 to 6 every day, and then we had appointments with clients, and he was always, like doing the deliveries and that kind of stuff, and I was always designing, and it was a lot of ignoring our kids and kind of just like the store consumed us. And so while he was in that coma, um, when he was very first diagnosed, one of the conclusions I came to was like, I think we need to sell the store. So just by releasing that, when he woke up, I said, "What do you think about selling the store?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's sell the store." And so just that one shift, all of a sudden we were having dinner with our kids, and we were having, we had time. We had time to do things, and so that was really cool.
Yeah. Something about that, like the way that mortality comes into focus and makes everything else in life so much clearer. Like,
Yeah.
um, this month I've been working, or I'm part of another group, and it's a magical group, and we've been doing a death contemplation. Um, which, for me, I'm like, well, I've come pretty, close to it, closer than I ever thought I would at my age. And so now to like every day think about, I could die today. What does that mean? How do I feel? How does that change the way that I live life? And I mean, it's powerful. It's been really powerful since having to face it with the cancer. But then like being a year and a half, yeah, a year and a half out, and then having my dad pass, it's like it feels more real. And also I think just from a psychological like body kind of place, I've also went into a little bit of a shutdown, almost like a numbingness from it. And to bring it back into focus this month has been very enlivening. So it's like it's ironic, right? I think how focusing on death makes us live more fully. So much of our culture is focused on avoiding it and pushing it away. You know, look younger, feel younger, like don't um, don't talk about it. You know, it's all like the health, the love, the light, and it's like, well, but also from the very moment that we're born, death is guaranteed. So,
Right.
like, um, yeah, it's just an observation. So when I hear stories of um like yours, I can't, you know, losing two husbands for your children to lose that, then also how much you learn to embrace life through it. It is a gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree completely. It it definitely brings things into focus more, and yeah.
Yeah. Um yeah. What does life look like for you right now? How is you've got the book coming out, and you're taking care of your two youngest ones. Um, do you
Yeah,
have
I've
Reiki master? Do you have, you know, what's that look like? Are you practicing? Are you?
I am. I also have my 200-hour yoga certification, and that was part of part of my healing process too. I think just kind of going into like, what are the things that really nourish my soul and feed my soul, and those are the things I want to focus on. And then also sharing that with my kids. My older ones are like, "Oh, mom, you're just woo woo." But my little ones, I'm like, you know what? I want you guys to learn how to meditate before you go to school in the morning and that kind of thing. So currently, 4 of my 5 are living at home with coronavirus being out there. So
Okay, wait. I was gonna say not with corona. Like they don't have
no, no, no,
coronavirus
no,
right
no, no, no.
now.
Just
Okay,
they were
because
they
of.
were yeah, they were all in dorms last year, and um and then this year 2 of them are home. One of them is still in her apartment dorm. So she's in Tempe. She's at ASU. All 3 of my kids do ASU, but she was the only one that opted to move out again. So she does better. She's super type A and really focused on her studies and stuff. And she's like, I can't live at home with all of you people and the dogs and all the craziness. I need like quiet and I need to study. And so we have lunch once a week. That's kind of our thing.
That's nice to still have her close. Also, I haven't heard the dogs, so they listen well.
Yeah, they're trying. If somebody comes to my front door, you'll know it.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, Sorry, I feel like I'm a little tired today, so I feel like I've been asking questions in my head and not getting them out. Like there's so much just that your story is incredible. And being able to write a book about it, I think I'm curious how that process was for you. Um, because I know for myself, I've been thinking about it and I want to do it, but it's I've been avoiding it too because it's really like it's going through the muck. Um,
Yeah,
which is healing, I think.
it's been incredibly healing for me. I pulled out my journals and kind of just would go through like I started out just making an outline like what are the chapters that I want, and I made each chapter um, a different gift. So like my first chapter is the gift of knowing, and it's the part of my story where we find out that it's cancer, and just the idea of, okay, now we know, now we can do something, where before you know, you're lost, you're like, I don't know what's happening. I don't,
Yeah. I got chills at that because I know that unknowing so well. It took me 5 years to get a diagnosis when I knew that something wasn't right.
wow.
So yeah, that's why I was curious about how long it had went for Dave, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
Dave,
yeah,
for Dave to go from cough to diagnosis, and any amount of time really, it's just hard. That
yeah.
unknowing is like, well, I don't know what to do.
Right. Right. So once you know, then no matter what it is, I think in life, like once you know, then you go, okay, now I can hold it. Now it's something I can grasp. I think that's why naming our feelings is so important. Being able to say, like, I'm feeling tired. And then I always go to, like, where in my body do I feel tired? And then once you name it, you can hold it and you can go, okay, I'm gonna do something with this tired now. I'm gonna take a nap, or I'm gonna do something to nourish myself. Once we name it, we can do something with it. Once we know. So I forgot what your question was.
I don't remember either.
Yeah. Oh, the book writing process.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, what gifts did I get out of it? And so I kind of just made my chapters, and then from the chapters I just started putting the story in, and I did it in as Pomodoro sessions. So like
Mm.
25 minutes and then 5-minute break and then 25 minutes, and some days I was more consistent than others, and yeah, it was really healing. There's a lot of like times as I'm writing, I'm like crying, and my kids would walk in the room and be like, "Why are you crying?" And I'm like, "I'm just writing my book," and they're like, "Okay, we'll leave you alone." um, but yeah, definitely a healing process for sure.
Yeah. Did you, what kind of support did you have in that process? Did you do like a writers club? Did you share bits with your Toastmasters group, or was it mostly a solo adventure at first?
So you know how you can like think something and then it shows up in like a Facebook ad?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about writing my book after that lady said that to me, that I should write a book. And next thing you know, I had like this thing pop up, like, do you want to write a book in 2020? And I'm like, yeah,
How did
I
you know?
I, I kind of do. Yeah, exactly. How did you know? Um, so I joined excuse me, write a writing challenge. I don't know where my voice went. Hold on.
Yeah.
I did a 30-day writing challenge is what it's called. And it was basically like, do you want to write a nonfiction book? Um, Go through this process and you'll get it done in 30 days. Um, and it took me longer than 30 days because I wasn't super consistent with it. Or I wasn't as consistent as that. And I got really stuck in editing, where I just wanted to like keep going back over the same things again, because in my head I just needed it to be perfect. Um, and I know perfection is not attainable. So I would say, like, as soon as I can read this whole chapter without changing one thing in it, then I'll move on. And then there's never been a time that I've read through it and not changed it. So I'm like, okay, done is better than perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was a book writing challenge that I did, and every morning you get an email that would say, do this today, and that was really helpful.
Oh, cool. I know about that perfection. That is why this is a raw conversation, and I'm not going to go back and edit it. Same with my expressions. It's easy to get stuck in that trap of wanting things to be perfect. I think especially when it's so personal, and written too is just feels so, for me, feels like permanent, or I don't know, it's just easy to go back and change things. With something like this or sound, I'm not as adept at editing, so it's a little easier to let it just be what it is. But that writing, going down the editing rabbit hole can be really uh just like, I can get lost in it. It sounds like
Yeah.
you felt that way too.
Yeah, I
um
think the editing is harder than the writing. Like the writing can just start flowing, and then editing, going back, like, did I use that word too many times? Did I, you know, whatever it is. Is that the proper use of my commas? You know.
mhm. Did you I had a question and it just like went into the ether. Oh, did you experience any writing blocks? You said, when you start writing, it would just flow. Were there days when it didn't for you?
Those were the days that I probably didn't write. You know, if I got myself to sit down and write, I was usually pretty okay. There were a lot of times that I would write and be like, I don't even want to share that. And I would just throw it out. There were a million times that I was like, throw the whole thing out, just get rid of it all, like start over. And I never did that. But there were a lot of times where I was like, oh, what you wrote, that was kind of shit. Try that again. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, yeah. This is, you can do whatever you want on here.
Yeah.
um,
And I
so did
think, oh,
go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things for me that's really hard is just being vulnerable enough to put it out there for everybody to actually read. Um, because I feel like there's, um, and I know it's just me judging myself, but I am always like, oh, people are going to judge me. People are going to think things about me. So just even being vulnerable enough to say, okay, I have a book. And then when I set the date, I had to immediately like put it out, like on Instagram, on Facebook, on all the things, so that now there's accountability. Like otherwise I would just say, oh, maybe I'll put it out on Tuesday.
Right, yeah. Put it out there so the world can hold you to it. I understand that.
Yeah.
Have you had people read it already? Have you experienced some feedback from it? How has that been for you?
I've had people that really love me read it. So I've had my sisters have both read part of it. My cousin has gone through the whole thing. She was actually my number one editor with me. So she did two things actually, because I would write a chapter and send it over to her, and she would be like, "Okay, I need the next chapter. When are you sending me the next chapter?" But she was also she's I think she has a master's degree in English or something. So she was really good with, you know, just editing and helping me. And at the very beginning of the process, I was like, I need you to be super gentle with my Pisces soul. And she's like, I'll be gentle with you. And she was, but she's just amazing with like, change this to that, and those kinds of things. So that's really it. And then I had another professional editor go through it. And she was like, "Oh, your book is really inspiring. You should feel proud." And I don't know if she just said that because, I mean, I'm sure it was authentic. I, I'm I'm proud.
Good, good. You should be. I'm really looking forward to reading it. I have a good feeling that you really should be proud of that. It's not um sharing like our vulnerable times is not easy. Can I ask a question? And you don't have to answer, but I'd be curious. What is it that feels most vulnerable about the book, or most what you fear people judging you on the most? Is there a certain feeling or thing that you said, or
There are probably a few things. Um, First of all, I wanted to title it "The Gifts of Cancer" because I wanted to shift the cancer conversation a little bit from the fight cancer, fuck cancer, that whole movement to me. Um, One of the things I always used to say to Dave, because he was kind of he was kind of wild. I always would say like, oh, he's my adventure. And there was a lot that he would do, or um, that was just annoying to me. Like probably like any marriage, but I always used to say I don't like this part of you, but I love you as a person. And I think I do, with everybody. There are certain things that you just don't like, but you love the person. And cancer for me was a thing that I did not like, but I still loved him. And it was, for better or worse, it was a part of him. It was there. So I wanted to shift the conversation to like what good did come out of this, and with that, I feel like I might, depending on who reads it, people who have been through the same process that I am, or that I have, the widow community can get kind of stuck in the most of my best friends are widows, but the widow community can really get stuck in the anger and the difficult. And I think trying to shift that is probably what I'm most afraid of.
Hmm. What is it that you think, what are you afraid of in shifting that? I'm curious because it sounds so like I didn't hear fear, I guess. Like what will people say? Is there a fear of what people will say, or whether they won't believe you? Or I because from where I'm sitting, I'm like, yeah, I'm with you. There is cancer was a part of me. I didn't like the fuck cancer, gotta fight it. And on some level it was like, well, I have to accept it and know why it's here, and what it's here for, and what the message is, and then like, you know, accept it and let it go. Like you were saying with like the name it, know it, and then like it can dissipate, or it's hard to
Yeah.
say. Cancer doesn't just dissipate. I guess maybe
Right.
that's something that people would take offense to, or go, well, you just can't do that. you know is it that whole notion of it being a positive, or that people will like tell you that you have a wrong view?
I think it's just, hmm, yeah, I think it's just people. I'm by nature kind of a people pleaser, and I like to make people happy. And what I've learned through my life is that I don't see things the way that most people see things. Like you and I resonate, but you and I are the minority, especially in the cancer universe.
Yeah.
Um, so when
Mhm.
I say things like, "Oh, he chose to stop doing chemo," there's a whole world of people that would be like, "Well, why would you stop?" So I even like kind of throw that in my book a little bit of like, this is the choice that we made. Other people might make different choices, but you know, this is where we were at.
Mhm.
Um, I just think it's the vulnerability, like everybody seeing my soul almost, like these are all the struggles that I had, and I share my disappointments, and I share my anger, and I just kind of just bare my soul to the whole universe or whoever wants to read it. Mm. So maybe I'm afraid of the vulnerability.
Mhm. I can understand that. Yeah. Afraid of just being seen in that way. I'm excited for you though, because I also like I see the smile on your face, and this like genuineness of like this is my experience and what I believe, and that you wrote a book, like deep down you know that people need to hear that it will be of service to people, even people who maybe have a different view. By putting it out there vulnerably as just your story, it gives them access, I think, to like adopting a new way without being told like, you should see your cancer as a gift. Oh gosh, I wanted to punch people when they told me that when I was diagnosed. Oh, this is happening for a reason. It's like, let me decide that.
Yeah.
Let me see that. um it- so there's just something subtle about it being communicated via a personal story that I am grateful that you decided to do that, and that you are taking that step and putting it out there, as vulnerable and scary as it feels. It's big.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited.
How can I ask, how did your work in Sean's groups come about, and has that how did it coincide with like the life events that you're writing about, and how did that mindset work come into play with putting the book out?
So I this is my first time through Sean's
Okay,
academy.
me
Yeah.
too. Me too. I followed
Yeah.
him for a while, but it's my first time in the academy. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I when I started my network marketing business, my essential oil business, I everybody was like, "Oh, you need to listen to the Quote of the Day show," and so I started with that, um, and pretty consistently listened to that. And I love Joe Dispenza, and I love anything that's going to expand my mind. So I read a lot, and um, it was interesting because my Young Living team is all um, doing a training on Tuesday nights right now, and it was basically starting the same exact week as MMA, and I was like, I can't focus on that right now. I need to focus on my book. Um, with with all the energies of this year, I was like, if I can get one thing for 2020 done, like one thing that I'm so focused on, and my oil business is ongoing. There's not really like an end point. There's of course like, oh, the next level or the next thing, but I really wanted to just get like one thing completely done. And then when you write a book, you think about, well, who's going to buy it? Who's going to read it? And that was when I was like, oh, I'm going to sign up for the MMA because that's going to help me to shift my mindset to like, I'm putting out this book and I really want you to buy it and I really want you to read it.
Hmm.
So that was probably the biggest thing.
How has it shifted things for you?
Um, well, just the learning about how brains work is really cool to me. Every week I'm like, oh my gosh, like you have the basic gist of things like we've all heard of like the law of attraction, and if you just focus on what you want, and that, and through Dave's journey, we never talked about like him dying. We always talked about him healing. We were like, we're gonna get through this. Everything and everyone was telling us we weren't, but we were gonna stay positive. um, and so I think just being able to understand like how our brains work and why we do the things we do, and how we can shift our brain and we can shift the way that we do things, I think was really powerful for me. I have like my little gratitude journal in my phone. And so I'm always like going back to like, what am I grateful for right in this minute? And I'm always, writing the next thing and the next thing. And so that's been really huge. And even being grateful for what hasn't come yet. Like I always said, I'm so grateful for my best-selling book.
Yes. Well, I can't wait until that arrives in the now for you. Was gratitude something that you had a practice of prior to MMA? Money Mind Academy is what MMA means for, I forget, we're not just speaking here to each other
Uh,
potentially. Um,
Gratitude was something that would pick up and put back down. You know, you were like, oh, I'm gonna be super strong with a gratitude journal, and then kind of you forget about it, or you know. Um, and one of the things that I was really good at was like, oh, I'm just gonna keep my gratitude journal in my head. So I would be like, oh, I feel so grateful for, whatever. But really actually like writing it down or putting it in my phone and being able to go back and look through it again feels really powerful.
mhm.
The act of putting it down is is a shift.
Yeah, there's something about writing it down. I feel even for me, the act of like handwriting is even more potent
Yeah.
than the typing, but the typing is more potent than the just keeping in. There's something about putting that energy out of this like mind space that I think
Yeah.
isn't. I don't know if Sean talked about this, but like I feel like it's not meant to hold. It like creates, and then we've got to like capture it somehow or put it out in a way.
Yeah.
I know if I just try and keep it all in here, it gets jumbled, it gets compressed, it gets lost. I over edit it, and it isn't as potent as having it out. And right now I'm picturing, were you in class Tuesday night?
Yeah.
So like the Taurus, the toric field and the
Oh
aura,
yeah.
you know, it's gotta, it's meant to flow.
Yeah. That's so true. I know there's so many times that I'll do like a brain dump. Like I go, okay, it's Monday morning. What all do I have to do this week? And I just start, I just grab a paper and I write all the things that are in my brain. And it is super freeing just to get it out. And then you can sort it and organize it and figure out what's most important and what's not important at all. Um, but when it's all in your head, it's just kind of like like you said, floating around and getting lost. And that's a really good way to say it. I like that.
Yeah. Um, so do you have any, you started following Sean through the podcast and now in MMA. Are you in book club too? No?
I'm not. I have a little women's group on Meetup, and we have our book club on Wednesday nights. So I was thinking about possibly shifting it, like do our book club maybe on Monday night so that I could jump in to that one. So we'll see.
The book right
Are
now is really good. I joined, yeah, because I had wanted to read Psycho-Cybernetics for a while. I had it on my bookshelf for like probably 3 years, along with so
uh,
many other books that I have that like, oh, I'm gonna read that one next, but there's just so many.
yeah.
I have book envy of Sean's bookshelf.
Oh, I know.
Right. Is your book club, what is it, a personal development focus or is it a more of a fun focus? Although I think personal development's fun. So
Yeah, me too. We do right now. We're in the Untethered Soul. Have you read that one?
yeah.
That's like one of my all-time favorites. So we're in the middle of that one right now, and we just do like a chapter a week. Um, so I think it's more personal development. My group is called Spiritual Women.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so it's more personal development focused. The last one we did was the warrior goddess. So, do you hear my Alexa?
Is that Alexa? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she just told me that she can't connect to the Wi-Fi, but I
Oh,
didn't say anything to her.
I find
Crazy.
that, oh, so creepy. Every now and then I've got a Google Pixel phone
Uh,
and the Google Assistant will like start talking and like I didn't ask you anything.
Yeah, back up.
So weird.
um,
Um, do you have a favorite spiritual book, personal development book? And so I have a twofold question. And
okay.
what is, do you have a spiritual or religious practice, or like how would you describe it? Your practice.
So, my favorite book I always go back to is The Four Agreements because I think it's a simple, it's a little checklist. We like lists, and so it's four things, and so I can always go back and go, am I doing these to the best of my ability, kind of thing. So when I'm talking to somebody new, I like carry around copies of it, and I'm like, here, you should read this book. Um, so that's probably my go-to favorite. As far as my spiritual practice, that is a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, but my parents were hippies. So I was kind of raised, with like peace, love, and light. They were both raised Catholic. So we did like church or Christmas and Easter church. But it wasn't like a huge part of our lives. But for whatever reason, when I was like 10 or so, my neighbors went to church, and I was like, I want to go to church with the neighbors. And so I started doing that, and ended up, my first husband ended up being a Baptist pastor. And it was kind of in that marriage and in that space where I realized, like, I'm not so good at being a Baptist. I'm not so good at like black and white thinking, and I think it's because of the way I was raised. So there were so many times that my husband would say, "You can't say that. Like that's what you're saying, what you're doing. Like you have to, you know, keep it down." And so after he passed away, one of the very first things that I realized, like, um, he passed away on a Sunday, and then that Friday night we had his service. And the following Sunday, I got up and started like getting ready for church, and I was like, I don't actually have to go to church. I don't, it's not, they're not, yeah, I don't have to go. And so that was kind of my very first time of like, I can think for myself. I can make whatever choice I want. And so that was really powerful for me. So I meditate every day. I practice transcendental meditation, and I keep my sage smudge at my desk, and I've got my essential oils, and I I know the Bible inside and out, and I love the teachings, and I love Jesus, and I love the teachings of Jesus. And I think that if people stuck to what Jesus taught, the world would be a really great place.
Yeah.
Um, so as far as church and it, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I have a little Buddhist statue, and I just kind of believe like every culture that has created something, it all comes back to like that universal energy of love. And so I guess that's my practice, is universal love.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that part of you. And I find it so interesting that you had that experience of hippie parents and that belief, and then also the very religious sort of experience, and then your own, like back to your own knowing of just what's true for you. Um, and that you described the religious way as that black and white thinking, and alluded to like this repression of who you were for the sake of what was expected. um, I was journaling recently. Actually, my partner and I had had a conversation. We're out in the desert and just marveling at like the beauty of the desert and the expansiveness and this creation, and that birds are flying about, and this, it's a desert, but they're just like, they look like they're having fun doing their bird things. And somehow we got on the topic of religion. He's like, I don't know what I'm missing. Like, people have this like intense faith in, Jesus saves and these are the laws and you must abide by them. But like, then, you look at this and it's like, I don't know. And I was thinking about that later, and I feel like religion is like the ultimate codependent relationship of like, I give up my power to something else that I need to please and sacrifice bits of myself to be accepted by this God or this
Yeah.
way, this higher authority that says what's right and wrong. And then like my spirituality, which I guess is it's a spirituality based in energy and based in like all accepting, encompassing, loving energy, is more like I can be all of me, and it's all held, so it's like, I don't know, it feels very freeing. And I see it in, like you said, really the like essence of I think what the teachings intend in so many different religious or spiritual traditions, like Buddhism, Taoism, Christianity, and they all kind of get to that similar basis of love at their purest form.
Yeah.
I feel like I just kind of like ramble sometimes, but
No, I'm right with you. It's like there's something, and we all know that there's energy, and we're all energy, and all the things are energy, and it's kind of like um what we've been learning about, like our creative brain, like that's that's that energy. That so it's I, I'm with you. I'm with
yeah.
you. Mhm.
I think we know, Elizabeth, but I don't know if we all know. That's something that I want everyone to know, though, to feel it. I don't know. For me, I don't think that, well, I do think that I always felt it. And I think that's why when I was younger, I can remember being 12 in the shower, like staring at my hands, not really understanding like what this is. Like, what is this body? What is this mind? And having this whole like existential crisis that none of my family could really like get that I was having, because they also didn't understand. They didn't have a practice or a relationship of their own to spirit. And I got sent to church, and like that didn't really work out well. And then I went through a lot of years where I just shut it off and like
Yeah.
couldn't figure it out. And then feeling back into everything being energy has been like a big path of healing. Even I see my cancer as an energy. And where did that energy come from in my life? I don't know if that is anything that Dave and you had ever thought about for the cancer. I haven't met many people who've had cancer experiences who have thought about it in this way. So I guess this is one of those vulnerable things that I talk about, that I don't want anyone to ever feel like I'm imposing an opinion of what it is. It's my story. But for me, it's that energy of like, what have I been taking in and not channeling out, or not
Mm.
allowing to move, hanging on to instead of creating. And my cancer was in my peritoneal cavity, so my root chakra, my sacral chakra, and my solar plexus were really the affected areas. Didn't reach up to my heart. Um, and for me, my greatest traumas are really in those three chakras, and in my early life.
Wow.
And I was not, I had an acupuncturist tell me, like, oh, you need to have sex, so get that energy flowing, or you're going to have disease there. And so there's really like from that being an energetic being, and experiencing myself as an energetic being, I've found healing. And I don't want to say never, that was not a way that traditional medicine looked at any of that. This is like from just my experience of energy and whatnot. Um, and yeah, so where I was going with that is that, so I don't feel that that's understood, or that everyone shares that view, and not everyone has to, but that to like everything being energy, how many people really grasp that, or understand it, or have felt like the truth of it in their body? I didn't, for until I know when I first felt my body as energy was when I took ecstasy at a party. um, and that was a incredibly healing event for me. So um, yeah, all that to just say, we understand this, but I don't know if everyone does. And that's part of what I want people to feel. Curious if what your view of the world and how people experience it as energy is, and how your experience of everything as energy has been. Like, has it always been a truth that you know?
That's a great question. I I don't I don't know. I don't know if I had like a specific moment of like, oh, like this. Hmm, that's a great question. I'm a little bit like going through my life trying to figure out. When I was a kid, my mom always used to say that I was an old soul and I felt things more deeply than other people did. That was kind of her um, um, like explanation for me, kind of thing. It's like you're just an old soul. You just feel things differently than people do. So I don't know if it was always always necessarily an acknowledgement of energy. Um, but I just felt like um, when I did want to go to church with the neighbors, my mom was like, "Well, you're going to have to go to all the churches then." And she's like, "I want you to make, yeah, she's like, I want you to make a list of different churches to go to." So I did experience like a lot of different beliefs, and maybe in that I kind of was like, well, these beliefs aren't really that different from those beliefs. There's like a core truth in all of it. Um, so that could be. Um, so possibly, I don't
Is
know.
there, well, maybe I can ask some more specific questions, and maybe share a little bit more about my experience. I I did yoga for a while, and that helped me like feel in my body more. But I lived a lot of life kind of disconnected. And when I had that MDMA ecstasy experience, I could feel the world around me in a way that I hadn't felt since I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was also an old soul. I was very sensitive. I'm a highly sensitive person, truly. Like I couldn't have tags in my shirt, the seams of my socks couldn't rub the wrong, sit at a certain point. Just really like extra sensory. Um, and like I said, at some point that got shut off. And when I took um, ecstasy, I was able to like safely come back and be in my body without a fear of the world around me, and to really feel things. And after that, I can remember like being in Vipassana meditation and really feeling the subtle energy in the body and feeling it. When I'm on my slack line, I can feel the breath and the energy moving down through my foot into the line and reaching up through my head, and feel it in my body, and then feel what gratitude feels like in my body, not just in my head, you know?
Really.
So more like that feeling, like the actual experience of everything as energy and what that is in the world. Like I'm touching wood right now, and wood has a different energy than like my metal coffee cup.
Yeah.
Like that level of like really experiencing energy. Like I would imagine in Reiki, you experience energy, right? I'm
Completely.
assuming because I've received Reiki. So I've received the experience of that energy around me. I've never channeled it outwards.
Well, and it's the same when you're doing Reiki on somebody, it's universal energy. So it comes in and it goes out, and you're getting a Reiki treatment the same as your client did. So definitely, um, I think when I pay attention, it's there. And when I'm just trying to go through the motions and get to where I need to go, and I have my list of to-dos, and I stop noticing, then that's when I don't feel it.
Mhm.
But I can't think of a specific time where I had like a switch, like, oh, I don't feel it, and now I do. There is a lot of times when I'm like so stressed that I'm like, I need to go take a minute, and I zone in, and I can feel energies that way. But I don't know if that answers the question.
It does, yeah. I think that my experience of being so shut down for so many years and out of touch with my energy makes it so that I have like a really like I have a clear moment of like that, oh, here it is again. And it
Yeah,
sounds like you have a very uh, more what I think is a more like healthy connection to it through your life of like you feel it, but it's like when we feel something consistently, we don't have as much awareness of it. And you're able to flow in and out of it. Like that being in a high stress place where we're just like, go, 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 do. And then knowing that we're in that place and have to like come back and breathe and center and really come back to a healthier place in our nervous system that
yeah,
allows us to constantly be in communication with the energy around us um, is
yeah.
help that healthy flow that you've got.
I will say, whenever you brought it up when we were talking about the cancer and the stuck energy. Whenever Have you read that book, Heal Your Body by Louise Hay?
I have not read that one. No.
So she's super into like, oh, you have something going on in this part of your body, then these are like the emotional causes of it or whatever. And when we first went to the clinic over in Tempe, the doctor that we met, we sat down with her and she said, Dave, your cancer is in your lungs. And she said, tell me what happened when you were 7 years old. What bad happened when you were 7 years old? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, she's like, something happened and you were sad. And I don't know why she said seven. I don't know if that was just intuitive or what. And he's like, I don't know. And then he's like, my big sister moved out when I was 7 because she was 10 years older. He goes, so that happened. And she's like, how did you feel? And he's like, I don't know. Like whatever. And she gets him to finally kind of, he like bursts out and he's like, it was horrible. I was sad. She was the one that loved me. She was the one that took care of me. I didn't know what to do. And she moved across the country, and like just all of a sudden came out. And she goes, you never have released that. You've never let that out before. And that was like all the grief was just sitting in his lungs.
Mm. That's powerful. That's the lungs hold our grief in Chinese medicine. And I'm curious if the reason for the age of 7, if that is the age where that chakra center. forms. I don't know. So something like
Oh,
that. There's so many like um not modalities, but like Louise Hay, she had her whole, if it's here, this, it could correlate to this feeling, and that matches with like chakra theory and Chinese medicine. And then, have you ever read any Gabor Mate?
mm-mm.
Are you familiar with any of his work? Have you heard of him?
Nope, I've never heard of them.
Oh, I think that you will be interested in the things that he has to say. He has this book, When the Body Says No, um, and it explores the stress disease connection. He also speaks a lot about trauma and how that affects us in our adult years and leads to disease, and unprocessed emotion leads to disease. Another book that was life changing for me was in the realm of Hungry Ghosts, because there's a lot of addiction in my family,
Okay.
and just how that manifests as, or trauma, early childhood trauma manifests as addiction. It's really, really interesting, how much there are doctors who know about these things, but it's not like widely accepted in the mainstream. And I just wonder if we knew about these things, if it was more accepted knowledge, how it might be different. Like then when a child experiences a loss and has parents who can help them process that loss, if we wouldn't see things manifest as cancer or, I mean, other syndromes and diseases and autoimmune things that happen.
Yeah.
Uh, it's cool. Not that, I think there's a fine line of saying like, well, you can't say like, well, Dave lost his sister and that caused the cancer. Like that's not,
Right, right.
uh,
Yeah.
my childhood trauma of growing up in an alcoholic home and all of that. Like that didn't like cause my cancer. That's not, I can't like blame it. But
That's that black and white thinking again, like the binary, this
right,
equals that, and it doesn't. It doesn't.
it doesn't. But also, energy has an impact. Energy goes somewhere. Energy, like it is all connected. So it's
Totally,
it's worth
totally.
exploring. I think emotions are so important. If we knew how important, and we do, right? You and I do. But if like the world understood how important they were, I think we'd have some different values, maybe more in line with Jesus's values.
Right? Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Have you heard of unity? Is unity one of the religious things that you've explored?
Yeah, I have. We have a Unity center down not very far away from here. They have like a nice garden, and yeah, yeah, we
Cool.
spent some time over there. They have like sometimes they'll do, well, I mean not recently, but sometimes they'll have like, oh, we've got these musical healers and people that do the bowls and that kind of stuff. Um, so I've gone and visited there a few times.
That's cool. I've been wanting to look more into that community. I found out a couple years ago, I guess, that my grandma, she went to Methodist church. Like growing up, my family went to the Methodist church. I thought my grandma was just Methodist, And then she shows me these Unity magazines and she's like, yeah, this is what I really believe. And she's like, everything's energy. And I'm like, what? What?
Oh wow.
Where was this information when I was 12 freaking out? And she said, well, my church friends, that's my community, and they don't agree with some of these things. This isn't okay. So she kept it hidden. And I'm like, oh man, there was such this like so much misconnection and something misconnection for many years, but over the last year, my grandmother and I have really connected over it now. And I've been reading the Unity magazines, and I love that they have people who talk about like tarot and people who talk about sound healing and shamanic things. Bruce Lipton was in one of their magazines, and I love his biology of belief. Um, cool stuff, and very
Right.
not black and white. Um,
Yeah. 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 All of them or none of them.
yeah, yeah. Do you have any more questions for me or things that you want to talk about?
I feel like we've talked about I feel like we've talked about a lot of things. I want to learn more about your I can't remember what you called it, but you did it in the park yesterday on Instagram. Tell me again, and you talked about it a few minutes ago, but I can't remember what it's called.
It's the slack line. It
Okay.
is it's a piece of webbing 2 inches wide under tension between two trees that I walk on for meditative purposes and self-discovery. And uh, it's an exploration of energy. It's a physical practice. So, like, yeah, it requires core strength and muscle balance and all of this stuff, but it's so much a mind body practice, like a meditation, which for me was life changing for so many reasons. Um, First of all, I wanted to do it, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm going to do it. And that energy of like, I'm going to do it going into this line that has this very bouncy, it moves. You have to create your own stability. As soon as I put my foot on it, it would just shake, 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 shake. I couldn't do it. And so that energy of like, oh, I'm going to do it going into this bouncy thing, it doesn't work. I had to learn to soften my body so that I could have flow. So
Right.
it's like bringing that flow of the energy of the universe through me. It's just like nervous system flow. It's getting past the energy of fear. It's building an energy of trust and confidence and empowerment, because the step on the line, you get big, take up space, and feel the energy in all the centers aligning and going through. So it's just this incredible meditative, spiritual, and also playful practice. For me, and I have been coaching people on it for empowerment and self-discovery and embodiment, and I think it's a powerful way to um, start to reprogram the brain and the body to uh, build confidence and have that self-esteem and that trust and that um, belief in being able to like feel something that we don't necessarily have in front of us. So it relates a lot to the money mindset work, I think. The whole mindset work. Uh I would love, is that something you would want to try?
I mean, it sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, I would want to try it, I think.
Well, I have a part of my dream is to get this on the road and take it around. So Phoenix, I'm gonna have to make a stop there.
Yeah.
Have
Well, I frequent San Diego, so maybe the next time I'm over there, we can have
Yeah,
a coffee date or whatever.
I would love that. Yeah. What brings you to San Diego?
I love the ocean, and it's a 5 hour drive. I have a couple of friends that live in Carlsbad, and they like rent out their spare room as like an Airbnb. So I'll be like, hey, can I come for the weekend? And it's just in my head, my intention is to like spend one weekend a month there, starting shortly. I was there 2 weeks ago, um, but I like to run over there whenever I can.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful here. Well, let me know next time
I
you're in
will
town.
for sure. I
Make
will
this
for sure.
make it happen. Yeah, I think that there is slackline is how I want to help people feel energy.
Yeah. It sounds like a really tangible way to feel it too. Not kind of like just sit and see what you feel. Like it's a way for people to actively do something to.
Mhm.
That's cool.
And I think that that's important. What you said, it's a way for people to actively do something because it, I do this. I have such resistance to sitting and meditating sometimes because I want to be doing something, you
Yeah.
know, and that's from a like a trauma perspective. To sit and just be in the body, it can be really hard to like feel into it because the brain just wants to go and protect us and keep us busy. But then on the slack line, it feels like, well, I'm still doing something. I'm still like moving, and it's like it's subtle. It's like sneaky. I don't have to. I don't know how to describe it. Like my brain kind of just has to take a break. And I notice when it's not, because if I start to think about other things, it's reflected in my relationship with the line, which is really like the relationship that I'm in at that moment that needs my attention.
So it's almost like um, I'm I'm right next to my kitchen and my son is getting some water. So if you hear that, but it's almost like in yoga, you can go through the motions and not feel anything with it. That's possible. And you can meditate, like you can sit and not feel it if you choose to, or if you can't get into the flow. But it sounds like your slackline, you you have to get into the energy feelings.
Yeah, you have to, or you fall off. It's
Wow.
what happens. And that so I did a yoga teacher training. I
Mm.
did yoga, but it was like I think that's an appropriate phrase. Like I did yoga. I wasn't like fully experiencing yoga. It was easy to go to class and just like go through the motions. There were times when I did, and in certain settings, really feel it, but it was easy to like cheat in a way, and I could even cheat like in tree pose, like you could cheat and have the pose right, but not really be in the energetic alignment of the pose. And
Right.
on the slack line, there's like, you got, like, for me, I found I've just got to be there.
Yeah.
Or I'm not standing on it. And it's a cool way too. I've been thinking about it of like getting to experience something in the body that's like hard and brings up fear, that isn't something that's like releasing a book, putting a book out there. That's big. It brings up feelings. And so to experience something in the body of doing it that there isn't like a personal attachment to, you
Mm.
know, and then know that, oh, you can do it and you can feel that, then I think it makes things like that are more personal, like releasing a book or launching a business or posting a blog post or starting a podcast or joining a dating site, makes it more like doable. Kind of like that, as you do one thing, you do all things,
Yeah.
there's like a reflection, there's an empowerment that comes, and um it's subtle.
Yeah.
Just the
I love
energy
that.
of everything.
Yeah. Now I totally want to try it. I'm
Yes.
like excited to try it. I needed
Yeah.
to hear that whole explanation. That was cool.
But thank you for listening, giving me the opportunity to say it and distill it. Maybe we can. Well, we'll talk more about this. Some of my ideas get. Whew, I get excited. I
Yeah.
really do get excited about this. It's so much fun to experience with people too, and it brings about like the play. I'm curious,
Mhm.
do you play? Do you have like a play in your life, play practice, or
I don't think I really do. I walk my dog, and I hike the mountain. We have like a little mountain over here that I like to go hike, but I don't know if I actually play. My 14-year-old that I told you about at the beginning, that's kind of in a struggle mode right now. One of the things her therapist told me like yesterday was that some people have like a high need for I can't remember if she called it spontaneity or like shaking things up. And she said that could be part of why she causes things to get kind of crazy in my house sometimes. And so she said, I can give you a list of things that you can do with her that are like fun playthings that will add the spontaneity. And it was like, playing Jenga and stuff like that, just to like have that there so that she doesn't feel like she's got to create it with drama. So as you're talking about your slack line too, I was thinking, gosh, I wonder if that's something that she would get into. Not specifically things that I am doing that she is currently completely rejecting. Um,
Yeah.
but just kind of something that's a little bit playful and a little bit, meditative and
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah. I think it could be really fun. And also, I mean, like, how cool is that? Like, it looks cool and it's fun. I
Yeah.
think there's appeal for some people and that, and especially, I feel like if I was 13, I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, or something like another thing that I found fun, and I don't do it as much as I would like, is hula hooping, hoop
Mm,
dance. It's kind of a spontaneous fun thing, but it moves energy, and it teaches about relating to energy and like feeling the energy from the center in a way that's like cool and fun, uh,
yeah.
and different.
Yeah, I've never been able to master the hula hoop, so I haven't tried it very much. I try it and I'm like, oh, I can't do that. I'm done.
Well, the key I found is to have the right size to start there. I'll bring hula hoops too when we slackline. It'll be fun.
Oh, cool. I love it.
Yeah,
I'm in.
yeah, lots of fun stuff. Well, I don't. Is there anything else you want to touch on or get to for this? We're coming up. We've got about 20 minutes that I have blocked off, so we've got time. And I just well, let's see. Or
Um, I don't know. I feel like we've talked about so much. Um, I think I'm. I think I'm good.
okay. I mean, I'm sure though there will be more things, and I love these raw conversations and videoing them. But I feel like even then, there's so much more that we could get into, and
For
that
sure.
maybe, yeah, we will one-on-one and in person, and we'll come up with more things that we want to share.
Yeah.
um, how would people go about getting on the list to know when your book comes out?
Well, I have a little bit.ly link that people can go to join the list, and I'm just sending a couple of emails. So I can give you that, and maybe you can share it.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
put it in the show notes. I don't edit, but I do some show notes. So
okay. And then it comes out on Tuesday, November 24th, 2020, on Amazon and Kindle. So you can just jump on Amazon. It's called The Gifts of Cancer: My Story of Embracing the Journey. So I can send that over to you.
yeah, that would be great. I'm looking forward to it. It it's a beautiful journey. If that I don't know if that makes any sense. Some people may disagree, but even being there for my dad, his diagnosis was sudden, and it was a month from diagnosis to passing, and it was
Oh,
about a year and a half after my cancer, and even that, the 2 weeks that I got to be with him, so many gifts in it that I think you've inspired me to write about. So I would be, I'd also like to get the information on the 30-day writing challenge that you did, if you wouldn't
For
mind sharing.
sure. For sure. I'll share that as well.
Make
Cool.
that my 2021 thing. All right, Elizabeth, thank you for this raw conversation. And
Yeah,
I
thank
hope
you.
that, yeah, this has been great. Nice Thursday morning connection. And
Totally.
I'm sure we'll connect again soon. All right, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.